Hello everyone, welcome to Analog IAS Current Affair Analysis for 27th of May 2021. In this video, we'll be discussing about the importance of developing self-reliance in R&D, especially in the context of the recent controversies that we have seen in the context of vaccines for COVID. And also, we'll be discussing about this article in the context of the science, technology, innovation policy that was released earlier this year. And the second one is about the hate speech definition. Let us have a look at the issues. Emphasizing self reliance in science. This article is about the recent science, technology, and innovation policy. This policy is the fifth such policy in our country. Now, if we go back into historic times, on 4th March 1958, we have had the first resolution stated on this particular day under the leadership of our first PM, Jawaharlal Nehru, about a resolution on science policy. After that, it was again revised in the second version was revised in 1983. The third one came up in 2003, and the fourth policy, which is in vogue right now, came in 2013. In the wake of the pandemic, our Prime Minister has given a call for Atmanirbharta or self reliance. Now, this self reliance is different from the kind of self reliance that was emphasized previously in various science policies, resolutions, etc., wherein the technological development of whatever was available with India at that particular point of time was supposed to be leveraged for utilizing our natural resources. But the kind of self reliance right now is about building capacities, even if it means partnering with various countries. So, this partnerships and globalized economy is the central point of our self reliance in this new science and technology policy as well. So, it comes up with a data driven and multi stakeholder driven science, technology, and innovation planning policy. The objective of the policy is to identify and address the strengths and weaknesses of the Indian STI system, that is the science, technology, and innovation system in our country, and make it globally competitive. Now, what do you mean by globally competitive? If you take the case of various countries like Japan in 1970s or China in early 2000s, it is their research and development which has propelled the economic growth. China's economic growth came from manufacturing and reverse engineering, but after a particular point of time, especially in the present times, it is heavily investing in the future through 5G technology. As much as 600 billion worth cash is being dumped into this research and development with respect to 5G technology and deployment of that technologies. So this shows that unless and until we focus on making a transition towards the demand of the future where technology is going to be the driving force, we cannot actually ensure that it impacts our economy in a positive way. So developing that capacity is very significant. Now, what are the challenges here? Firstly, the idea of science and technology and research in India is not taken seriously. Therefore, it reflects in our budgetary allocation. 0.5 to 0.7% of our GDP is allocated to R&D sector. The second problem is with respect to the quality. If you take a look at most of the scientific journals that are published in our country through various institutions, especially in the higher educational institutions that impart PhDs, most of the journals are peer reviewed, and the quality of journals and the standards is in tune with the requirements of the European journals which publish these papers, and they don't actually address the needs of our country. So this brings us to the aspect of quality, where Indian needs are to take the central prominence in our entire policy issues as well. The funds allocated should also meet the social objectives of our country. except for a couple of organizations like CSIR, ISRO, which are at the apex level organizations, which are at the top end of our R&D. The other IITs and other institutions are also indulged in this mediocre quality of research. It is mainly again because of the policy design of peer reviews and ensuring that they get published in European journals, which is actually helping European journals and their economic model rather than serving our needs. And again, coming back, the reason for such a policy option is because we don't have significant budget allocations. Third one is the problem of access. The scientific literature is very limited and it is very expensive. So if a person who is studying in a rural level college wants to access through digital route, he does not get access to such high quality journals. So this causes a handicap on his ability to seek or at least educate himself about the prominent developments in the areas of his interest. So this brings us to the point of private partnership. Now, the private partnership is not a significant investment in our country because we don't have a strong framework for IPR, that is the intellectual property rights. There is no incentive for the private sector. Therefore, all these problems have amalgamated into one of the major handicaps of our country, that is not being a nation where innovation is respected. This is the anomaly that this particular policy wanted to correct with certain emphasis on quality of research, making access universal, and various other initiatives with this front. One of the major recommendation is to increase the importance of R&D in our educational institutions by more budgetary allocations. However, the major criticism of the entire issue here is, firstly, Indian R&D does not take into consideration the lower rungs of the ladder. That is, Indian society is highly stratified, and also there is gender discrimination. So these aspects are not addressed. There are no policy measures or recommendations to ensure that access is increased to lower castes as well as the women who are slipping out of this entire supply chain. We see very few women scientists in our ecosystem. The second aspect is with respect to infrastructure. The policy talks very vaguely about this infrastructure building and how to mobilize the resources. So that is the gist of this article. More and more such articles will be coming up. We will be covering more such criticisms and analysis in the further articles. Panel to define offences of speech and expression. In our constitution, when we talk about Article 19, we have a freedom of expression. But often, one of the roadblock that has been quoted by civil rights activists is that often freedom of expression is curbed by the government in the name of hate speech, and this issue has been pending with the Committee of Reforms in Criminal Laws for a very long time. So the problem is, what constitutes hate speech is not exactly defined in our laws. Despite that, a lot of cases have happened, and without a definition it would be very arbitrary. In order to correct this anomaly, there is a need to clearly define what hate speech is all about, and it is in this context the CRCL, or the Committee for Reforms on Criminal Laws, is constituted by the Union Home Ministry to suggest reforms to the British era IPC, that is the Indian Penal Code. Let us try to understand hate speech. In general, it refers to words whose intent is to create hatred. That is hate speech. Now, against which group is this hatred directed is also important. The group may be a community, it can be a religion, it can be a race, So identity of the group is also a matter of concern. This speech may or may not have meaning, but it is obviously leading to violence. So anything that is done to create violence, and the underneath fact is that these words created this hatred, if it is clearly established, then till now it is considered to be hate speech. We have the Bureau of Police Research and Development, BPRD. They recently published a manual for investigating agencies on cyber harassment cases. This manual defined hate speech. Let us have a look at how they define hate speech. They said that it is a language that denigrates, insults, threatens, or targets an individual based on their identity. In common language, we can call it bullying. That is cyberbullying. So this is one definition. Also, if we take a look at the 267th Law Commission report, hate speech is stated as an incitement to hatred primarily against a group of persons. Again, this group of persons can be race, religion, caste, ethnicity, etc. The usual ones which are mentioned in Article 15. In order to determine whether a particular instance of speech is hate speech or not, the context of speech also plays a very important role. That is why it is very difficult to actually define hate speech. Now, this hate speech can have various reasons. It can be gender stereotypes, it can be a stereotype about a particular group, caste, where persons are made to feel inferior. And when this inferior superior complex develops, this dichotomy develops, there is a stubbornness to stick to a particular ideology because they want to control that power. In order to break this, we need to have institutions, and that institutions should run based on Indian penal provisions through the Indian Penal Code. Now, there are various provisions. We have had section 153A and 153B, which spoke about punishing those who cause this enmity between two groups. And similarly, if we talk about the Representation of People Act, if a candidate is proven to be guilty under Section 8 of the RPA Act 1951, it prevents the person convicted of the illegal use of freedom of speech from contesting an election. Now, this illegal use of freedom of speech also constitutes hate speech. We have to remember that a lot of cases were filed against people or politicians who were contesting in elections, but they did not result in conviction because there is no clarity on what constitutes hate speech, because it did not essentially lead to violence. There were very little instances which led to violence. Now, the question before the court and the committee that is handling these reforms is, should it necessarily lead to violence, or is it just about the mindset itself? So in this context, we also have to take into consideration the 2019 Vishwanathan Committee. This Vishwanathan Committee proposed inserting new sections for incitement to commit an offence on the grounds of all the factors that we have discussed in Article 15: race, religion, caste, sex and place of birth. And if proven guilty, they should be punished, and sometimes they can even be fined as well. So there should be some sort of deterrence which is large enough to stop people from using this hate speech on the pretext that they are not creating any violence. Similarly, if we take a look at the 2014 Besbarua Committee, even this committee proposed section 153C of IPC amendment, and said that we should probably punish the people who create this environment for at least 5 years. What is the way forward on this now? For a country like India, there is a lot of diversity. So subjects like hate speech and expression become a very complex issue to deal with, and what we have to understand is what constitutes hate speech and what constitutes freedom of expression should be clearly defined. Several factors will be considered in defining this. There will be opposition saying that
People are not getting the freedom of speech. Even mere criticism and dissent will be treated as something, a sort of a curb on the freedom of speech. But we have to understand that from the time of independence, our society did evolve. We still uphold the values of dignity, liberty, and equality to a larger extent. We are not using preventive detention arbitrarily. We today have social media where people have been active participants and they have been raising their voice, and this collective voice is sometimes reflecting the decisions that the government should be taking as well. So therefore, giving a proper definition of hate speech is very important, and it would be the first step to deal with the menace. Other initiatives such as awareness creation among the public is also going to add to this effort. At the end of the day, what we have to understand is we have to find a right balance between freedom of speech and freedom of expression, and that can only happen if the terms are not vaguely defined. So that is the objective that is laid in front of the panel that is trying to reform this legal issues. That is the gist of this article.